Welcome to another Damilola Forex Academy video. Today, I'm going to be breaking down Trendline in its simplest form. Okay, so this is a Trendline Trading 101. If you are new to Forex trading or if you are an experienced trader already and you want to learn about Trendline trading or learn how to use Trendline, then this video is for you. Just sit down, grab a snack and enjoy this video while I take you through every single thing you need to know about Trendline and Trendline trading. What is a trend line? Okay, a trend line is a diagonal support and resistance tool. Okay, a trend line is used to check the strength of a trend. There's always a probability that if a trend line has been violated, then that trend is no more valid. And for example, if it was a bullish trend and the bullish trend violates a bullish trend line, then there's a probability that the bulls are done and the bears are coming in to take over prices and vice versa. Okay, so a trend line checks the strength of a trend. That is what it does. It's a diagonal support and resistance tool that checks the strength of a trend. Okay, a trend line is similar to the horizontal support and resistance tool. Okay, so what the horizontal support and resistance tool, which can be the horizontal line, or you can use the shapes like the rectangle. What that does is it checks the horizontal support and resistance zones. Okay, it checks the horizontal support and resistance zones, while the trend line checks what? The diagonal support and resistance zones. Okay, the trend line checks the strength of a particular trend. If price is on a bullish structure, then we want to see our trend line obey. We want to see a bullish trend line obey. If price is on a bearish structure, then we want to see a bearish trend line obey. If there's a break, there's a break below the bullish trend line, then that means there's a probability that the bears are in. And if there's a break above the bearish trend line, that means that there's a probability that the bulls are in. Okay, so a trend line is a very important tool that we use in checking the strength of a particular trend. Okay, if a trend line is violated, like I said, there's a probability that that particular trend is weak, and it allows us to either enter or exit a particular trade. Okay, so what are the types of trend line that we have? That is the second question, which is we have the ascending and the descending trend line. Okay, let's type it out. Types of trend line. We have the ascending trend line, and we have the descending trend line. Okay, so these are the types of trend lines that we have. Like I said, we have the ascending and the descending trend line. Okay, so what does the ascending trend line do? The ascending trend line checks the strength of a bullish trend, while the descending trend line checks the strength of a bearish trend. Okay, so let me draw that out for you. Okay, so for example, for a bullish structure right now, you would know that a bullish structure moves on higher highs and higher lows. Okay, so this is a bullish structure, moves on higher highs and higher lows. Okay, so what does an ascending trend do? This is how an ascending trend works. It checks the strength of a bullish trend. Okay, so clearly we can see that this trend still obeys. Okay, this is a bullish structure of higher highs and higher lows, and clearly we can see that the trend line still obeys. This shows that the bullish trend is still very valid. So far prices keeps on obeying the trend line. It shows that the bullish structure is still very valid, and we are still very much on a bullish structure. Then what does a descending trend line do? Let's go. A descending trend line checks the strength of a bearish trend. Okay, so right here we can see that prices is still very much bearish because the trend obeyed the descending trend line. Okay, so this is an ascending, the left side is an ascending trend line that we used to check, the strengths of a bullish structure, and the right side is a descending trend line that we use to check the strength of a bearish structure. Okay, so like we said, if the structures hold, if a trend line is not broken, then there is a probability that then it means the structure is still very solid. But when the trend line is broken, it means that, okay, right now a diagonal zone is broken. Price has been following and rejecting at this particular trend line. But right now, price has decided to break below or above the trend line. It indicates that, okay, there's a weakness of this particular structure. Okay, let's do it, for example, here. Okay, we can see that initially price has been obeying right here. Okay, price has been obeying the structure, the trend line right here, obeying the trend line. But at this point, prices broke out of the trend line. This will indicate bullish weakness, and there's a probability that the bears are beginning to come in and the bears are beginning to take over prices. Okay, for the bearish side, we can see that if prices comes right here and prices breaks above the trend line here, it indicates that there's a probability that the bears are weak and the bulls are beginning to take over, because before then prices had obeyed the trend line continuously before going out and breaking above the trend line. Okay, so we know this right now. So the next thing we are going to talk about is how we can apply these trend lines. Okay, so we can apply these trend lines in various ways. Okay, we can apply these trend lines on their own, and we can also apply these trend lines with other tools, which is what I do. I apply these trend lines with other tools, as a trend line alone cannot give me a 100% confirmation of a change of structure. So what do I apply this trend line with? Okay, so I apply the trend line with a chart structure, trend line and chart structure. Okay, just like the example I showed you guys right now, I did not apply trend line alone. I looked at trend line and I also looked at the chart structure. Okay, I can also use the trend line with the horizontal line. Okay, trend line and horizontal line, or let's say the horizontal zones. Okay, so I can also use the trend line with the horizontal zones to give me a more accurate direction of prices. Okay, there's a break of a trend line and there's a break above horizontal zones, that is maybe an horizontal line that I brought out. Okay, there's or maybe the sensitive zones in which I show the prices. Then there's a probability that prices is either changing direction or continuing in a direction. Okay, also there is also the trend line and Fibonacci. Trend line and Fibonacci. Okay, so these are the three ways in which I can apply the trend lines. Okay, I don't just trade the trend lines on its own. I try to apply the trend lines with other tools I have in my arsenal, so that I can have more accurate results and accurate information about what a chart is, where a chart is currently going. Okay, so apart from a change of structure, we can also use the trend line to ascertain if prices is continuing on that particular structure. Okay, for example, like we showed right here, let's bring it out again. Okay, so for example, we can see, for example, we see an ascending trend line here. Okay, push, exhaustion, push, exhaustion, push, exhaustion. Okay, and we see prices following this same structure right here. And we see prices following the same structure. Okay, so at this point where prices is, we know clearly that what if prices rejects, okay, once prices gets to the trend line, it reacts. We know clearly that price comes to this trend line and reacts and rejects. We know that, okay, we are going to buy prices again. Okay, sorry about that. We know that we are going to buy prices to the top side. Once we see prices reject at a trend line, we know that we are going to buy prices. If it comes back again, if it holds to the trend line again, it shows that, okay, the trend is still strong. And we know that what, at a rejection at this trend line again, if prices reject at this trend line again, we know clearly that we are going to buy prices again to the top. Okay, so for a bearish side, it's also the same thing. We can use the trend line to check we can use the trend line to pick an entry point for a continuation of the sell on a bearish structure. For example, this is it right here. Okay, so this trend line. Okay, so for example, this trend line has been holding right here, and we see prices come back to this trend line. Okay, once prices comes back to that trend line, we know clearly that, okay, if prices reject this trend line, we know clearly that, okay, prices is coming down again, or prices is obeying the structure and coming down again, and prices obeying the trend line. Okay, once we see prices come back again to this point, to the trend line again, and we see a rejection at the trend line, we know clearly that price is coming down. So a trend line can be used to ascertain if a trend is still very, very strong or if a trend is weak. And depending on whatever information prices gives us, if a trend line is strong or if a trend line is weak, it is going to let us know our next move. Like I said, I use the trend line with a lot of these tools, the chart structure, the horizontal zones, and the Fibonacci zones to check if a trend line is very strong. Okay, so let me open another page and show you guys how I use the trend line with the horizontal zones and chart structure, okay, before I show you guys on the live chat. Okay, so for a bullish structure right now, we know it's a combination of higher highs and higher lows. Okay, higher highs and higher lows. Okay, so clearly we know that this is a bullish structure. Okay, so we know clearly that on a bullish, structure, we are going to see higher highs and higher lows, and we expect a rejection, a diagonal rejection of the structure. Okay, so right here we can see clearly that prices rejected at this structure to push up, rejected at this structure to push up, rejected at this point here of the trend line to push up, and we expect price to reject here. Okay, so if I want to enter a particular trade for a direction, the first thing I look at, for example, if it's a change of structure, what do I look at? First of all, I look for a trend line break. Okay, so that is the first thing. The trend line must break. This trend line right here must break. After the trend line breaks, now I'm now going to bring out my other tools. That is, first of all, if I'm using the trend line and, okay, let's identify here trend line plus support and resistance, trend line plus the horizontal support and resistance. Let me just write it out as horizontal zones. Trend line plus horizontal zones plus chart structure. Plus the Fibonacci. Okay, so I make sure that anytime I want to enter a trade, I make sure that all of these 4 different tools, I make sure I apply them before entering a particular trade. Okay, so for example, we are looking at a sell on this particular trade, and what happens? The first thing is what? Prices breaks a bullish trend. Okay, by first of all breaking what? Below a diagonal trend line. Okay, so that is the first thing that price has done to indicate that, okay, prices is probably on a bearish structure. That is one, break below trend line. The second thing I'm going to look at is what? Is prices breaking below the horizontal line, that is this line right here. Okay, so if prices comes and breaks below this horizontal line, it means that what? Okay, this horizontal line is now, this horizontal line is also a structural zone. Okay, because prices, a bullish structure is a combination of push of higher highs and higher lows. So right now, when there's a break, I put my horizontal line here. So when there's a break of my horizontal line here, I know that what? A structure is broken, because right now we can see prices now as a lower low right here. That is a low that is lower than the previous low, which means that the bullish structure has been changed, and now the BS are in. So right now I can also see, like I said, a break below horizontal zone. The third, I can also see what? A break below, break and change of structure. And change of structure. Okay, so the last tool I'm going to bring out here before I sell is my Fibonacci. Okay, so I'm going to bring out my Fibonacci and check if the 61.8 of my Fibonacci has been broken. And from here, I'll bring my Fibonacci, I'll roll it from the low right here. Okay, so this would be the low right here. Then this is the high. So my Fibonacci would have been broken around this point. The 61.8 would have been broken around this point. So that will be the first point, that what? Break of Fibonacci, before I enter a sell on this particular trade. Break of Fibonacci. So as soon as I see that all of these four criteria listed here has been violated or has been broken, I know that what? Okay, the bulls are completely done, and the next thing I do is what? I enter my sell on this particular prices. Okay, because one, there's been a break below trend line, there's been a break below the horizontal line, which and the horizontal zone. There's also been a break and change of structure, because prices made a lower low that is lower than the previous low, which indicates, remember that a bullish structure is a combination of higher highs and higher lows, and a bearish structure is a combination of lower highs and lower lows. Also, there's also been a break of Fibonacci, because I always check that prices should have broken the 61.8. Okay, once I see everything together, then I go ahead and I enter my trade. Okay, so this is how to use Trendline. We use Trendline with various tools, which also works on the bearish structure also. Let's go ahead and bring the bearish structure out. The bearish structure clearly is a combination of lower highs and lower lows. Okay, this is a bearish structure, lower highs, lower lows. Okay, so we'll bring out our trend line and make sure that what our trend line has been holding. Okay, clearly this is a very valid bearish structure and bearish trend, because price is clearly still holding its bearish structure right here. Okay, so as soon as this is violated, then I know that what? Okay, our first point right here, which is break, right now it will be break above trend line. Okay, so it's going to be break above trend line. Let's edit that out, being that this is a bearish structure and there's been a break above the bearish structure right now. So on this point, it's going to be break. Okay, break above trend line. Okay, so that is what it is going to be at this point. Break above trend line. That is the first thing we've seen right here. Prices has broken above trend line to indicate a possible change of structure. Okay, so the next point before I enter a trade, I'll look at what? Now it will be break above horizontal zone. Okay, let's go ahead and clean that out. Break above horizontal zone. Break above horizontal zone. Okay, so as soon as I see a break above horizontal zone, that is this, I'm going to identify my horizontal zone at the previous high right here. This is where my horizontal zone is going to be. So After a break of a trend line, I wait and I watch prices. That's what prices must also break above horizontal zone, because what a break above horizontal zone also indicates that a break above the horizontal zone also indicates that there's also a break and change of structure. Okay, so this is the horizontal zone. This is where I'm going to identify my horizontal zone at the previous high. So right now, as soon as it is broken, I know that there's been a break above horizontal zone, and there's also been a break and change of structure. How? Because prices now has an higher high, that is an high that is higher than the previous high, which indicates that the bulls are currently in and we are going to take over prices. So what I do is I'll take my entry around here. I'll take my entry around here and put my stop loss below the previous low around here, and I ride to my take profit wherever it is at the next support and resistance zone. So this is exactly how I trade using the trend line. Okay, so I don't just use the trend line on its own, even though yes, you can use the trend line on its own, but I use the trend line with other tools in my arsenal just to be able to get more accurate information about the strength of a trend. Also, the last point here is the break of Fibonacci. I'm going to bring my Fibonacci and put my Fibonacci at the peak right here to the trough right here. And by the time I bring my Fibonacci out, I would have noticed that the 61.8 would have been broken around this point. Okay, so that is all of these 4 points have to be in play before I enter a particular trade. So this is how I use Fibonacci with other very important tools I have in my arsenal to give me accurate. This is how I use the trend line with all the tools I have in my arsenal to give me an accurate information of what prices is doing. Okay, so right now I will go to my chart and show you guys. Right now I'll go to my chart and show you guys a very good example of how I take trades using the trend line and also using a lot of these other tools. So let's go ahead, guys. For a trend line to be valid, a trend line needs to have 3 touches. Okay, so that is, a trend line cannot be valid if it only has 2 touches. For example, with this trend line right now, this is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so clearly we can see that price was obeying the trend line before breaking the trend line and eventually crashing down to the next zone. So the trend line is only valid after it has the first touch, the second touch, to indicate that yes, price is obeying this particular structure, and the third touch, the third touch can obey or can break the trend line. Okay, so a trend line is only valid on its third touch, not on its second touch. If there's a break below or above the trend line of a second touch, then it's not valid, but at the break of a third touch is when a trend line is valid. And you can use your trend lines on the candlestick or on the line charts. Okay, on the candlesticks, the trend line should be used on the wicks. Okay, that is the lowest point of prices, while on the line chart, the trend line can be used on the body of prices. Okay, so right now we'll be using the candlestick to explain the uses of trend line right here, how it is used to check the strength of a trend. Okay, so clearly we know that I trade from zone to zone. I trade from a sensitive zone to another sensitive zone. Okay, so right now, once prices got to this sensitive zone, let's identify all our structures. Okay, clearly price was on a bullish structure, push exertion, push again, touch 1 L there, touch 2 L there, but on the third touch, prices violated our trend line. Okay, as soon as prices violated our trend line, we knew that one of our criteria, which is the trend line, is broken. Okay, so if we are going to sell, we'll sell below the break of the trend line and we'll put our stop loss above and ride to take profits. Okay, if we are just using a trend line confirmation. But on another note, we also use the horizontal support and resistance zones because price is rejected at a sensitive zone right here. Okay, this particular zone where price rejected is a sensitive zone. Also, we can also make use of the Fibonacci. Okay, this is the Fibonacci right here. Bring Fibonacci from the from the trough right here to the peak. Okay, from the trough to the peak, we are going to sell after prices break 61.8. So first of all, prices rejected at an horizontal support and resistance zone. Prices broke a trend line. Prices broke a 61.8. This definitely has indicated to us that the bears are in. So what we are going to do is what we are going to short prices around this point here. Okay, so we're going to short prices around this point here. After the 61.8 is broken, the trend line is broken, where we can be able to short prices here and put our stop loss here and ride to take profits, okay, which we can clearly see that prices went to take profits, okay, because also prices made a change of structure, okay. We can see that after prices made a break below the trend line, made a break below the Fibonacci, 61.8, then what prices did was what prices prices went and created a lower high right here. Then prices came and broke the lower high right here by creating a lower low. Okay, so this is clear indication of structural change. So we are going to make sure that we have all of these things before entering this particular trade. Okay, we can see a clear indication of structural change by prices creating a lower low. We can see prices rejecting at horizontal zones. I'm also going to highlight this line here as an horizontal zone that I want prices to break. Okay, so once prices breaks the trend line, as we can see, prices broke the trend line, prices broke the Fibonacci 61.8 like we brought out, prices broke the chart structure by creating a lower high, breaking below the 61.8, go create a lower high and break below the lower low. Okay, once we can see all of these things, Fibonacci break and all of this, we know that okay, price is clearly on the sell, and we are going to sell, put our stop loss above the high and sell to the next zone. Okay, so this is quite clear. I'm going to give another example again of how we use the trend line for our entry confirmation. Okay, so this was another trade that I picked. Let's go ahead and first of all read the structures. Okay, so this was a push exhaustion. Clearly this was a bearish structure because prices was on a bearish trend of push and exhaustion. Then prices came to this point, created a lower low right here, which we know clearly that a bearish structure is a combination of lower highs and lower lows. Then prices came to this point and what broke. First of all, let's bring our trend line out. This is going to be the peak right here. First of all, prices came and broke the diagonal trend line right here. Okay, that's the first indication. Second indication is what? If we bring out our Fibonacci, we'll see that a Fibonacci zone has been broken. Okay, peak to trough, we'll see that a Fibonacci 61.8 zone has been broken. This is the 61.8 zone which has been violated. Okay, we can also see a change of structure. Okay, where did the change of structure happen? The change of structure happened when prices created an higher high at this point. Okay, change of structure happened when prices created an higher high at this point, an high that is higher than the previous high. This is where the change of structure happened. So what are we going to do is what we bought prices, we buy prices and put we bought prices at the break right here, bought prices right here at the break and put our stop loss at the previous low right here and rode prices to take profit. So this is how we do it using the Fibonacci, using the trend line with other tools. Okay, just like we said, we use, first of all, we saw a break of a trend line right here. Then we saw a break of a structure. Then we also saw a break of prices rejecting from an horizontal support and resistance zone. So at this point, I will identify another horizontal support and resistance zone at the previous high. Prices broke the horizontal zone, prices broke the diagonal zone, price broke the Fibonacci 61.8. So it's very, very clear that this particular trade is bullish and we bought prices to the take profit. Okay, let's look at one more example, which is right here. Okay, let me bring the tool out. Okay, this was a trade we took recently. Prices made for push right here, an exhaustion for bearish structure. Prices continued, made another push right here. an exhaustion or bearish structure or push right here. Then the trend line was broken at this point. This is the peak of this 1, 2. Okay, so the trend line was broken at this point. As soon as we saw a trend line break at this point, we knew that, okay, there's a probability that prices has changed structure because a trend has been violated right here. So this was an indication. One, we brought our horizontal support, our horizontal line around here. We saw a break above our horizontal line, which also indicates a break above the zone, which also indicates a change of structure, because right now price has an high that is higher than the previous high. Then what did we do next? We brought out our Fibonacci also. Okay, our Fibonacci also. This is the Fibonacci. We'll put it at the peak right here, then take it. Okay, we'll put the Fibonacci at the peak, then take it to the trough at the low right here. Clearly, we can see that the 61.8 zone has also been violated. So all of these tools, we've been able to see that, okay, with all the tools in our arsenal, prices is bullish right now, and the bears are weak. So we bought at that point. Okay, we bought at the break of the structure, put our stop loss at the low right here, and rode prices to take profits at this point. Okay, so let's go ahead and identify it again. This is push, exhaustion, push, exhaustion, push. Then we saw a break. First of all, a break of a trend line. Okay, this was the first thing. This is the trend line. We saw a break, prices break above the trend line. Prices come and change structure at this point, breaking above the horizontal zone by creating an higher high that is higher than the previous high. Okay, raising an higher high that is higher than the previous high. Okay, also we brought out our Fibonacci, just like we said. We brought out our Fibonacci also, and our Fibonacci, clearly we put our Fibonacci at the peak right here to the trough at the lower points. We can see a 61.8 zone broken again right here. Let's identify that out. This is the 61.8 zone that has been violated right here. So clearly, everything signifies to us that the prices is bullish. So what we did was what we bought at that particular close, and we bought at that particular close, and we bought at that particular close, and prices flew. We can see prices flew to our take profits. Simple chart structure, using chart structure to pick our trades, using chart structure with our trend line to pick our trades. Okay, so guys, this is how we analyze. This is how we analyze using the trend line with our other tools in the arsenal, and it gives us more accurate information, and we're able to go ahead, use the trend line with all the other tools and kill the market and have very, very good success trading the market using the trend lines. Okay, so guys, this is the end of this video. If you enjoyed the video, do like, share, subscribe. And if you want to learn more about how I use all of these tools, how I trade the Forex market, and every single thing about Forex trading, I'm going to drop a link in the description to my free Telegram channel. Join my free Telegram channel, and if you also want to have a one-on-one class with me, you can hit me up to join my VIP group, where I'm going to be taking you on a very serious one-on-one class, where I'm going to be teaching you every single thing you need to know about the Forex market. So thank you guys. Do share this video so that every other person gets this knowledge. Thank you.